Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day today. Today, as you can probably see, we're talking about the Bushmaster ACR. It's one of my favorite guns. Honestly, though, it's more nostalgic for me, even though I do think shooting it is a lot of fun. I think the weapon system is very capable, but there are just drawbacks to it, you know, like anything, and there are some reasons why it wasn't really picked up by any military, except for, I think, the Polish military. But today, we're going to be talking about specifically the one I have in my hands right now, which is fitted with the 300 Blackout conversion kit. Now, specifically the 300 Blackout conversion kit for the ACR, they're incredibly expensive. If you can find them on Gunbroker or Arms List or something like that, I saw one sell for $1,000, and I saw a brand new factory one go for like $1,700 just the barrel itself. Of course, it's the same bolt all the way around, so the one that I have in my hands right now actually has my old upper receiver in it. I have a new upper receiver coming in, but has the old bolt in there, but of course it's 300 Blackout, so it uses the same bolt. But we have a new, sort of a heavy profile barrel that they have on here. It's a 1-in-7 twist, and it's an incredibly short, non-adjustable piston system. So far, I've been testing it with anything from 115 to 220 grains, and it's been 100% reliable with all that, which is really cool. And in a piston system, there's really almost no recoil with 300 Blackout subsonic, so even though I don't have a suppressor on it right now, shooting subsonics is quieter, you know, just because it doesn't have that supersonic crack. So the setup that I have in my hands right now, we of course have the 300 Blackout barrel. It has the AAC, the 51T flash hider on it that comes with almost all ACRs. It's one of my least favorite flash hiders. It has a really annoying ting sound after every shot. It is a suppressor mount, but if you don't own one of the SOCOM suppressors that mounts to it, it's not really that usable. We have one of my favorite handguards for the ACR, which is the Midwest Industries in FDE. It's the 9 3/4 inches, I want to say. M-Lock handguard, really nice, really lightweight, a lot lighter weight than the standard handguard. We have an FDE lower, which unfortunately, it does have the extended safeties on it, which is nice. They're extended, I believe, aluminum safeties, but it has the stock trigger in it. The stock trigger in the ACR is like a mil-spec AR-15 trigger, but a little bit worse. It pulls at like 7.5 to 9 pounds most of the time, and it's pretty gritty. I sprayed this one down with some lubrication, so it's a little bit softer, but still not that great, even for a mil-spec trigger. And of course, we have the very popular Magpul folding stock on here, which kind of makes these guns. The stocks are really hard to find sometimes because they sell out super fast, and they go for like $200–300 in some cases, and they work with just about everything. I think almost every gun has an adapter for the ACR stock, so you have like Scorpions, you have B&Ts, you have CZs, you have Scars, of course, that have the adapters for the ACR stock, because this is pretty much the best stock that was ever made by Magpul. It has pretty much every feature you would want on it, and it has a super tough locking mechanism, and you can fire it, as I showed you in the intro, folded and while inside of a car, and it's very compact, even with a 16-inch barrel on it. So I believe, if I remember correctly, you can only use the ACR in 300 Blackout if you have the ambidextrous charging handle. Just the way it interacts with the bolt is a little bit different. So that this one here is ambidextrous, and it kind of makes it look like it was in the video games like Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3, which is really cool. And actually, that's kind of why I got into the ACR, was more of because nostalgia. Playing Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3, and actually just replayed them recently. And it's a ton of fun, and it looks like it, and kind of brings you back to your childhood. And the actual gun in real life, though it is a little bit heavy, is super fun to run. Now, it should be noted that my other ACR is an ACR DMR with the PRS stock. It's rated at 10.4 pounds, and this one here, as you see it complete with a magazine in it, is like 8.5 pounds. So quite a bit different weight. That being said, 8.5 pounds is still heavy for any sort of modern AR-15 with a 16-inch barrel. It does have a little bit of a heavy profile on this barrel. You know, a lot of your AR-15s with 16-inch barrels are coming in at like 6.5, 7 pounds, 7.5 pounds, fully loaded with just about everything on them, whereas this guy here just has a red dot on it and a Magpul VFG. So basically what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to talk a little bit more about the setup and do some more shooting with you, kind of show some of the issues that I've had with some magazines with 300 Blackout, but that's really not the gun's fault. But this is actually going to be, this is supersonic MagTech 115 grain open tip match ammunition, so it should be pretty good. I think that I had a problem with these UTG magazines with 300 Blackout with subsonic ammunition, so I think we're going to have the same issue. So I'll probably just have to swap over to another magazine, because these UTG mags that I picked up, they don't like to run anything that's not 5.56. So we're going to do supersonic. So I'm going to do probably 2 rounds, 7 yards, 2 rounds, 10 yards, 2 rounds, about 7 or 8 yards. Yeah, that 115 stuff, that stuff is a little bit hotter. but still runs good. It's still ejecting at about, I think about 230-ish, which is still a really good spot for it. ACRs and 5.56 are generally speaking way overgassed, and this is pretty much perfectly balanced for supers and subs out of a really short piston system in here. Go ahead and empty this guy. So basically, if you take off the handguard, the Midwest Industries, I think it's like 9.375 inches or whatever it is, handguard, it's pretty much the perfect length. It's not super long. They do make a 12-inch version, which is good if you're doing more like long-range DMR stuff. So if you're putting on a bipod or something, you can get that out and increase your fulcrum point. But with this sort of setup, 16-inch barrels, not really needed, and I'm not somebody who puts my arm perfectly straight out to grab the end of the gun, so I like to have a little bit of curve in there just for some flexibility. So let's go ahead and take this guy off, because it actually should not be very hot. Actually, it's kind of hot right now, but let's go ahead and take it out of there once I get this guy off. All right, so as you can see on here, it has a very, very small, very short piston. So basically the piston system on here is super short. I think it's basically a pistol system. I'm not sure if it's exactly a pistol length system, but you have a very, very short piston because this is still a short stroke piston system. So this pushes out and pushes into your bolt carrier group, standard bolt carrier group that I've used in all of my stuff. Like I said, it's the old upper receiver, it's the old bolt carrier group, because the new bolt carrier group is in a lot better shape, so I didn't want to just start using and abusing that one when I have the other one. Something to note about 300 Black, especially with such a short piston system like this, is when this piston comes out, it dumps a lot of gunk onto your barrel and into the part of your upper receiver. Everything pretty much gets coated in lead. 300 Blackout is not a super clean round. Definitely not like 5.56. There's a lot of residue, a lot of buildup, so we are going to have to clean it a little bit more for sure. In terms of return to zero on these guys, it's pretty good. I have a whole video showing the return to zero is about 1 to 2 MOA. Depending on what ammunition you're using and you know, how far you're shooting at, that sort of thing. But basically, inside of 300 yards does not really make a difference. Let's go ahead and shoot it. I have a target, or a steel target, set up at about 50 yards, and let's give the guy a ring. Okay. There we go. Perfect. So we're right on there. Oop, got a dive in there. This is a GI magazine, so I forget the company. I forget the company that makes this magazine, but we'll see if this one here has issues. This is now 220 grain Remington. Alrighty, so then before we were so rudely interrupted by the memory card filling up on here, we have 220 grain Remington open tip. This is like self-defense ammunition, so it's a hollow point. So we might have the same ammunition or the same issues with magazines. I didn't have any issues with the Magpul PMags Gen 3, so we'll see how these function in here. It seems to be you have to kind of tip it forward in the mag well a little bit to get it to feed with 300 Blackout. But let's that doesn't want to come out of there. Well, let's see how that goes. Yeah, that's in there. All right. So let's go ahead and do probably 6 rounds. Do a little burn, see if it can. Almost no recoil, but it did once again. Dropped the, did not feed properly. All right. Got a couple rounds in there. Alrighty, so now we got these guys loaded up into a FDE PMag Gen 3 windowed version. And I know that these have worked before because I have a lot of footage of these, as you guys probably saw in the intro. So we're going to go ahead and do this. I think I have 25-ish rounds loaded up, right at 25. That was probably about the fastest I've run this guy. Let's see how it went. Alrighty, so 6 shots, and I think this is pretty accurate. So first shot from a low ready up, 0.47. Second shot, 0.16, 0.16, 0.14, 0.14, and 0.12. So as I started getting a little bit faster on the trigger, I sped up a little bit towards the end, which is generally how it works. I kind of ramp up a little bit. I definitely could have transitioned a little better there. On the second target, I pulled off a little bit, 286. First shot 0.88 from a high ready at 15 yards. Second shot 0.2, 0.46 transition, 0.3 follow-up, 0.72 transition, a little slow, and then 0.3 follow-up. So I definitely could have cut both the transitions and the splits down on that. I think I got it. That says 4.62, so that's actually under 5 seconds. So first shot 0.5, right, very consistent. 1.2 for draw and present, hitting the target, and then 2.9 seconds back to the ACR with an emergency reload in there. So let's try that one more time actually, see if we can do that again. Oh, that was hard to get back in the shoulder. I had to pick it up a lot. It's not the lightest gun in the world or the smallest, most compact gun in the world, so it still does have some weight to it. 5.14 was the total, so 0.44 first shot, so pretty fast. 1.3 transition to the pistol shooting, also pretty fast. And then 3.4 seconds for getting back on the ACR. So a little bit slower there, but still well under that 6, close to under the 5. There's a 5.14. Okay, we're going to go ahead and end it with a burn. I think I have 5 rounds in here. I'm going to transition to pistol, which probably has probably like 13 rounds in here. And we are just going to dump everything we have in this target from about 10 yards away. I'll probably slow down a lot with the pistol, but riding the safety on there with the ACR. So we had a 0.8 first shot, high ready slower for me, so about 0.8 is pretty close, anything from 0.65 to 0.8. Then I had a 1-2 split, a 1-2 split, a 1-4 split, a 1-4 split. Last round, ditched the gun, grabbed the pistol. I had a 1.74 transition to the pistol, which is a little slower. Then I had a 32, a 24, a 24, a 26, a 24, a 22, a 22, a 24, a 24, a 20, a 24, a 22, and a 26. It should be noted that with handguns, I'm a lot slower, obviously, with a rifle. And about 20 to 25 is pretty standard for my splits from about 10 yards with a decent sized target. This is a 2/3 size reduced IPSC, so it's like 12 by 20 is the actual main zone of it. All the shots are pretty close to the center, but there is some spread on there. So mostly I'm just shooting, waiting for it to reset, and then once I get my cadence down, I'm pretty consistent. Like there, all my splits were like 0.2 to 0.26. So that about does it for the Bushmaster ACR in 300 Blackout. This is more of just a in-field discussion of the rifle, doing some shooting with it. I really like it in 300 Black. I've done a lot of shooting today. I've put through a couple hundred rounds at least of 300 Blackout and about 100 of 5.56. Now, as I mentioned, 300 Blackout, especially subsonic, when you're out here, there's not much noise. There's not much risk of it traveling super far, of course, because it is a subsonic round. So you're not worried about ricochets or anything like that. You can shoot steel very close range, you know, 10, 5, 7 yards, that sort of thing, without worrying about getting a ton of stuff flying back at you. Also, something nice about it is this barrel is not cool, but you can actually grab it and hold on to it. So at this point, you know, we've put an extra 60 rounds down the barrel. With 5.56, which is obviously a lot hotter ammunition, you're not going to be able to do that. So when you're shooting 300 subsonic, it's not only is it quieter, it's softer recoiling. There's basically no recoil on it. So within 20 yards, you can pretty much pull the trigger as fast as you can. As long as you can keep the gun pointed in the right direction, you can pretty much pull the trigger as fast as you want. But yeah, and it's also just a lot of fun. And since 300 Blackout Supersonic and Subsonic are right about the same cost, for me I tend to shoot a lot more Subsonic just because it's the same cost and it's more fun to shoot, less recoil, close range steel, all that sort of fun stuff. Plus it also transitions if you go to Supersonics, and now you're looking at a hog hunting round, you're looking at a deer hunting round, depending on where you live, that sort of thing, and you have that all in the same platform. Now it should be mentioned that I also did put about 100 rounds through this barrel as well. This is a 16.5 5.56 barrel, 1-in-7 twist. This is the most modern profile for the ACR, the ones that they were made from the factory from Bushmaster. You can have different ones made up by like Templar Precision, but this is a factory barrel. So it has a very lightweight profile, not quite a pencil, but pretty much the as light as I would go on a profile for sure. Not quite pencil, but pretty close. But even though this has a much lighter profile than the 300 Blackout barrel that I have in here currently, because you have a much longer, bigger piston system in here, the weight is actually very, very similar. So the balance on this guy is pretty good, just because it's a very thin profile, and it definitely helps out the ACR a lot. And of course, coming from my ACR DMR, which is again 10.5 pounds with nothing on it, I did run a 3-gun competition with it, with a big scope and stuff on it, and it was like 12 pounds fully loaded, 12.5 pounds fully loaded. So it's a big gun to run around. These guys are sitting in the 8.5, 9 pound range, which is still heavy for a gun, but much, much more usable. And honestly, for most people, they're not going to notice a huge difference. Some people are more weight sensitive than others, depending on your locale, depending on what you're doing with it. If you're hiking with it, if you're doing hunting with it, or if you have to like trek to get to where you're shooting at, that weight can add up really fast. But for me, since most of the shooting I do is pretty close, I live in Washington where there's a lot of trees, so getting to a location with long range is a little bit difficult. 300 Blackout is really a 500 yard and in target or round with supersonics, and a couple hundred yards with subsonics. They're accurate enough to go out to long range, but of course the 300 Blackout just doesn't have a lot of oomph. After a few hundred yards it starts to dive off, very similar to 7.62 by 39. That being said, I consider myself extremely lucky to have one of the 300 Blackout factory conversion kits, and as long as I'm still shooting 300 Blackout, I will probably keep this conversion kit. Only if someday, when I'm no longer shooting 300 Blackout and I've moved on to a different caliber, would I think about getting rid of it. 300 Blackout is super versatile. You have anything from 90 grain high velocity stuff to super quiet 240, 250 grain subsonics, that are just whisper quiet, especially when you get a suppressor. I will eventually be getting a suppressor for this guy, but as you saw, it runs unsuppressed 300 Blackout subsonics just fine. Anything from 200, 220 grain full metal jacket stuff, and supersonics, of course, they have a lot more energy, so those guys are going pretty fast and they cycle really good. So this is the Bushmaster ACR in 300 Blackout, and it is an absolutely sublime shooting experience with either supersonics or subsonics. Again, I count myself extremely lucky to have one of these, and it has been an immense amount of fun. But that is pretty much it for the video, guys. I've been out here for hours and hours now doing shooting. There's going to be a lot of shooting for this video, which is going to be awesome. I think you guys are going to like it. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the video, guys. So let me know what you guys think of this down below. Let me know what you guys think about this or what I should do with it next. And that's about it. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace off.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. What are you still doing here? The video's over. Wait. Why are you still here? Like, share, and subscribe. Or don't. The choice is yours. But if you do subscribe, thanks. And I like pizza. Peace off.